The third core component is knowing culture. How are we going to do this? Go ahead and click it one more time, please. So we have tools to get to know families in our center right now. So we have questionnaires that families fill out when their child enters our classroom. We do kind of informal interviews when we do parent orientation or when a family first comes and joins your classroom. We do parent conferences, parent involvement activities, or asking for parent volunteers. If you're doing a certain activity or you're studying a certain topic in a project, asking for parent volunteers might give you information about where that family has strengths or knowledge or other resources and connections that they can bring materials back to your classroom for. So let's do a little bit of developmentally appropriate practice overview just for preschool. So what do preschoolers need? Preschoolers need positive and caring interactions from both the adults in their classroom and in their school and community and the children. They also need really intentional guidance, purposeful guidance that helps them think through the conflict or the problem or their own actions. And they need a safe environment that they can just explore and make their own. So when children are 3, 4, and 5 in that preschool category, developmentally, what are they doing? What are they excelling at? So they love new materials, new roles, new activities and ideas. This really encourages them and inspires them and gets them excited. They're also really focused on feelings. They want to express their own and they want to kind of identify and react to others. They're growing cognitively so that they can represent their world through symbols, through pretend play, through other drawings that they make. And finally, they're making large language games during this developmental stage. So this is an example of a positive interaction for preschool DAP. So it says, in the dramatic play center, 2 4-year-old girls are pretending to read menus. Maria, the teacher, noticing that neither girl has taken on the role of waiter, takes a notepad and pencil in her hand and asks them, "May I take your order?" Over the next few days, more children join the restaurant play. Waiters set tables, take orders, give orders to the cook, and prepare checks for dinner. So why is this developmentally appropriate? How was her interaction appropriate for these children? How did she meet them where they were at? Can you click one more, please? So Maria found out what they were interested in, right? She took something they were interested in. She built on what they already knew, so they knew how to do a little bit of what happens in a restaurant, read the menu, right? And then she noticed that they were kind of missing a part. They didn't have any waiters taking orders or any of those kinds of things. So she then helped them extend their knowledge in that scenario of what happens in a restaurant and what you do in a restaurant to really kind of challenge them and further their development in that area. Okay, so there's going to be, can you change slide please? There's going to be 4 scenarios of things teachers and students are doing in the classroom, and I want you to determine, is it DAP or not, and why. First scenario, please. Okay, so the first scenario is teachers choose materials and activities based on whether they are fun and entertaining for the students or appealing to the parents. So, is this DAP? It's not developmentally appropriate. Why? Because we choose activities as teachers based on what's culturally representative, based on what's fits their developmental level, based on what we want to cover in all subjects, based on the project that we're learning, not just what's fun and entertaining or appealing to parents. So our second scenario is teachers use a wide range of vocabulary with children, including words they do not know. They providing them with context clues and supporting information to aid in understanding. Is this developmentally appropriate? It is developmentally appropriate. Even though teachers are using words they don't know, they're really helping the child extend their vocabulary and language skills because they're giving them the context clues, the supporting information to help them understand. Scenario 3. Teachers provide opportunities for children to play in groups and by themselves. Sometimes when a child asks the teacher for help, the teacher refers her to a peer instead. Is this developmentally appropriate? It is developmentally appropriate. we want to help the children build their own community and be a successful member in that community in their school. So, based on what the child needs, they might need to practice standing up for themselves, advocating for themselves, expressing themselves with language. So referring them back to a peer is not just a teacher's way of not having to deal with them, it really could be what's best for the child, and therefore it is developmentally appropriate. Okay, this is our final scenario. So when conflicts arise between children, teachers take action immediately to step in and solve the problem. Is this developmentally appropriate? No, it's not. Because we want to teach children how to problem solve, how to be independent, how to have this, and self-sufficient, and have their own skills to work through things that they encounter. So if we just step in and we solve the problem, we're robbing the children of the cognitive processing of trying to try it, or trying to repeat after us as we show them what happens. So solving their own problems might make the problem go away faster, but isn't very developmentally appropriate for them. So questions. If you have questions, I'd encourage you to jot them down and present them to me when we get to be face-to-face next. But here are my questions for you. Again, kind of think through these and write down your answers so that we can all collaborate and share on this later. So which of the three core components of DAP do you feel the most comfortable implementing in your own classroom, and why? Which area of DAP do you feel you could really improve upon? What is one obstacle you face while using DAP? And finally, what is the most helpful thing you're taking away from this training to implement DAP into your own classroom? Okay, so as a quick review, DAP is a research-based teaching approach and will provide optimum learning and development for children. It's based on knowing development, knowing your students, and knowing the importance of their culture and how that all affects their learning. And it requires taking the information that you've gathered from them, from their families, and from that specific individual, and then putting it into action and planning based on it for instruction activities and interactions that you're going to have with those children. These are some references. I invite you to delve into them on your own, or to ask me questions about them, and I can show you where the information is on them. Okay, so you have these two handouts in front of you. I encourage you to take them back to your classroom and use them. These are just two tools to ensure that you're planning developmentally appropriately and you're responding to children developmentally appropriately. Okay, so we're done with this training, but now over the next 2 weeks, before we meet again in person for a professional development, I need you to observe 2 to 3 coworkers and find 2 examples of scenarios and interactions that are very developmentally appropriate and 2 that are not. And if you have any questions about an interaction you saw and whether it was or was not, you can jot that down and we can kind of collaborate on that to come to a conclusion. But just remember that when you're observing coworkers, it's best if you're just a fly on a wall. We don't want to make anyone feel watched. We just kind of want to be a bystander, letting the teacher and the child interact. And secondly, we're keeping all of our observations completely anonymous. We're not trying to call anybody out. Everybody has room to improve in this area. We're just really trying to use realistic, practical examples to gain information for ourselves so that we can ensure we're implementing developmentally appropriate practices. Thank you for coming to this training, and let me know if you have any questions or concerns.